Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Ray. That is Wednesday night and we have a special Cat Case edition tonight, hot off the press after a lot of us have sat and watched a live stream for 7 hours, not really knowing what on earth is going on. I'm joined by a special panel, one of our regulars, of course, Holly. We have a new face to introduce you to, Irena. We have our lead, of course, and we have Keith Patterson from NCSL, who has played a major part in getting this cat case to the forefront. So great to have such an esteemed panel joining me tonight. And Holly, I'm going to come to you first. And I think a lot of people would expect me to have Keith on first, but I'm going to come to you first. You're a supporter like myself, and neither of us are legally trained. Our interest really comes because of the football club. We want to see the club taken over. We want to see the Saudi takeover. But our thoughts on this it's a passionate thing, isn't it? We want to see the club taken over. And as I say, we're not legally trained. So you and I have probably got the same opinions as the hundreds of people who are already watching. What is your opinion of what you've seen today?
My opinion of the cat hearing today is that it went in Newcastle United's favour. That's how I feel. I was very encouraged by what I've seen. I thought that it certainly gave me a lot more confidence going forward. Last night, I was thinking it could go one of two ways. I either thought it was going to go massively in our favour or massively in theirs. I didn't think there was going to be any kind of in between, or we wouldn't be sure which way it was going. I think it certainly did go in our way, though, and I thought the club was representative very well. I also thought that they made a clear distinction between the difference between the cat case and the arbitration, which was a massive sticking point that I feel like now is being cleared up. So hopefully that is the case, and now the Premier League can understand that, you know, there is a difference between the cat case and the arbitration, and they're addressing different issues.
Okay, good stuff. Irena, welcome to the show. You are a New York-based human rights lawyer, national security analyst, media security consultant, and I love the last bit, troublemaker, on your Twitter profile. Welcome to the show. And you came to our attention after appearing on LW Newcastle, of course, our lead show, which we all love to watch from Saudi. What's your take on what you have watched today?
Well, I'll start with the positive, which is the work that has been done by the club's QCs has been tremendous. They've clearly outlined the case of corruption, of what appears to be illegal collective lobbying by pressure groups and companies that interfere with the business, with the deal. I think they presented their case masterfully. I think that I agree with Holly on the importance of underscoring the difference between the cat case and the arbitration, because as a reminder, today's case was a procedural case to decide on the jurisdictional issue whether the case needs to be thrown out or not. And one of the arguments was that there is no distinction between the two cases, and therefore it should be thrown out. So that was very, very important from a legal standpoint, from a factual standpoint. The case should be in Newcastle's favor, absolutely. But this is where the expectation management part comes in. Just because you have the facts on your case, just because you have the law on your case, doesn't mean that this will be handled fairly or things will go exactly as they should. Now, that doesn't mean that I think necessarily that the case is going to be dismissed. But I do think that there may be further legal challenges en route that are not that should not happen had the situation been being handled quite fairly. I think the Premier League is actually more prepared than it appears to be. I expect dirty tricks and interference far beyond simple legal responses that we see on the surface. I expect a lot of behind the scenes lobbying, pressure, and sometimes the arguments about these things that appear after the fact don't make sense after what you watch initially. I really hope that doesn't happen. I think they may also try to postpone the decision as much as possible, because we now have a court we now have a court date for the arbitration case. It's January 3rd. It's not that far away, not as far away as people expected. So from Premier League's perspective, it makes sense to try to waste as much time as possible, and get the decision postponed as much as possible. So that's where I would caution about. Again, the case was made very well. So my concern is not about the legal expertise presented, or whether the lawyers actually did the job. My concerns are about uh, dirty games, and the fact that this is not just about the law, but information warfare, and therefore we could expect surprises.
It's interesting you mentioned dirty tricks, dirty games. I always, I groaned a couple of times when they had to go off screen and discuss things. And, there has been a suspicion, I guess, from Newcastle fans over the last 15 months that, there has been a lot of corruption, dirty tricks, etc. going on. There's also been, I feel, and I might be wrong here, but the hijacking of the hashtag of NUFC and hashtag of NUFC takeover on social media, and people like myself, Keith Patterson in particular, Steve Hasty, who is a regular on this show, we have been targeted quite seriously, I feel, by other people on social media. I'm not clear whether that is potentially part of the dirty tricks. Am I barking up the wrong tree there?
Absolutely not. I think that's actually the least of it. The attempt to intimidate the fans and to play these hashtag games is psychological warfare. But to be clear, the aim of it is is just to essentially demoralize the fans, and to demoralize and to put a damper on the enthusiasm and support for the Saudi role in this. Now, the real games are not played on social media, because at the end of the day, it's not the fans who are the judges. The fans have their minds made up. So you can't really get people to walk away from something that's obviously beneficial for them just by social media hashtags. The real danger lies in the massive infusions of cash that go into behind the scenes lobbying, pressure tactics, possibly even intimidation of witnesses and high level and judges and things like that. That's more worrisome. But these attacks on people like yourself are meant to send a message not only to the fans but to PIF and to others, that people who are on their side can get hurt, can be that their supporters can be targeted as well, and that essentially um, it's an attempt to disrupt the deal itself, not by fans, but using the fans as almost a human shield for other parties, for PIF who stand behind this. Unfortunately, it's a longer. The psychological effect here is more than the just direct unpleasant attacks on social media.
So would you say that the likes of Keith and myself and others have been the victims of geopolitical trolling?
Absolutely, because to be honest with you, otherwise it would make no sense for entities looking to disrupt a deal to target fans who have zero financial involvement, with the exception of a few overall in general, or who are merely podcasting or expressing their personal opinions. The message here is to not only put a damper on active advocacy for the deal, but also to send a message to those who are behind the deal, that they are not going to be left alone, that their supporters are going to be targeted, and that they won't derive the PR or other benefit from investing in this venture or continuing to pursue the deal, even if legally things go the way. The idea is to show that it's not going to stop. This is not going to be a fair war of back and forth in the courts.
Irena, since I've spoke to you over the last few nights, and I talked about people that do this kind of thing, you've sort of helped me understand it better. Where do you think the attacks come from? And when you've looked at it, where in the UK, for example, do you find nerve centres, or where do you find people based who are doing this?
I think it's quite clear that the entire campaign has been organized by Qatar and its associates. And because I'm here on Steve's show, and Al-Walid doesn't have to be responsible for my comments anymore, and I can say, quite frankly, where all the evidence is coming from. There are specific individuals who are in Qatar's employment. Not all of them are Qatari. Some of them are British, who have been involved in masterminding their campaigns. There are companies connected to Qatar who are involved in the lobbying efforts, like the whole issue with BAN is tied to Qatar, and it's a dispute with Saudi Arabia over piracy. And there are other issues that may seem completely unrelated to football that are nevertheless related to Qatar's interest in the United Kingdom and in the markets there, that I believe are informing the way this is being handled.
That's crazy, Keith, to hear that, isn't it? And good evening to you, Keith. And can I just say, thank you for at least getting us to this stage. And, we don't need to go over it. We've been over it many times. But you took a gamble, mate. You're a fan like everybody else. You took a gamble. And you ended up getting the club to listen to you. And it wasn't first time, it wasn't the first time you had to really go at them, and you got them on side. We wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for you, Keith. So well done. Take a drink tonight. Well done. I can see you getting emotional, and rightly so, mate, because the pressure on you has been immense, and you've always been away from the public eye. You're such a lovely guy. You're a Newcastle fan. You've done it for the fans. You've done it for the club. Well done, mate. And you should take a bow tonight. And if this doesn't work, at least you tried. Your name will be there, forevermore in my heart and many others who watch this show, for at least trying to get us to somewhere. So well done, mate. But what's your take on today's case? Fascinating 7 hours, mate. Even if I'm not a legal mind, I found it fascinating watching and listening.
I appreciate what you've just said and what a lot of the fans have said the last 24 hours. It's just been a hell of a journey. It's been like, would you do it again? Somebody asks us, would I do it again? Yeah, of course I'd do it again, because I wouldn't know any better than what I knew last time. I thought that if you supported a team and you went at something like this, all you had to do was get a case into court. And I knew technically that a competition case would give them the disclosure they needed. And it showed today, if you look at all that evidence today, there was such a push from Adam Lewis to the QC for the Premier League to try and stop the whole mechanism of a CAT case disrupting what they can clearly show you is a Homer case. The Homer case is the arbitration, because arbitration doesn't afford you any disclosure. And what Lewis was saying, he says, no, we're going to run it quickly. So when has the Premier League ever run anything quickly? They've never run anything quickly in their lives. And he was trying to stress to the judge around about 5 o'clock tonight that if you let them get the CAT case at 3rd of January, that they'll run it within a week. Well, when has the Premier League ever sport like that? So I knew back then, having run CAT case before, that arbitration doesn't afford you disclosure, whereas a CAT case does. So when people come on, the so-called legal experts have come on Twitter over the last year and said, oh, a CAT case will have nothing to do with this. The only way you'll get it, they haven't got a jolly clue what they're talking about. They're talking about the backsides, because an arbitration is more or less an in-house operation whereby there's 3 judges, they nominate one each with you, and they have the final say on the last one. And then when they get that, they get, if you like, minimum disclosure. And the only way, if you took away Irena's coming from, the only way you're going to get disclosure of what's really been happening and how a cartel's been growing in the UK. I mean, I'm an ordinary lad from Durham, yet I could write to Richard Masters on the 7th of August last year and say, you're running a cartel, these are the 6 teams. And that was before the ESL ever came about. So if I could nominate them 6 teams and put the word cartel in and tell him back then he was collective lobbying, which collective lobbying is where you use an outside force to lobby people, to stop people compete with you. And that was mentioned today on the case. You know, how many times have I been on this show and mentioned the behind letter? And it was me that got that. And I took that to the club, and I took it to their lawyers and took competition action to them. And, you know, I can bring a QC forward who I've spoken to tonight, who met the club with me and said you won't win this takeover without a competition action, because it is illegal what they're doing. They are guilty of operating a cartel-like behaviour. There is collective lobbying going on. It's going on to the 6 top clubs, and it's going on via beIN Sports to the Premier League, and it's don't let the takeover go through Newcastle. So what happens then? You've got to say, have I got the funds to do it? And we knew we had enough funds to get a case into court. But when you watch that, what we're on today, Steve, it's on a different scale. I mean, you know, it's on a grand scale. And if you heard when they talked about, if you let it run, there's costs to pay, we'll pay all your costs between now and then. They can make decisions like that. Them costs could be millions. Them costs could be, you know, just on that cat case could be 3, 4, 5 million, just like that. And you know, I've consumed 25 million on one side in a cat case before, just on our side. So monies in legal cases can run away. If the fans had run a case as we originally intended to, you can run it on a smaller scale. But my job, there was a big relief today at 10:30 where I could just breathe out and just think, thank God I've got into court. You know, like we've got the case to run. And if you look, that all the things have been saying for a long time about what is important, what is not. All that is starting to come out now. So I wasn't making it up, but there's obviously some things we couldn't say. How did I feel? I felt relieved, but I felt it's like when you've got a great racehorse and you take it to a track and you think, we couldn't have this horse any better. That's how I feel like tonight, because we've put a QC in. He's eloquently put our points over. I felt our QC, like Holly said, put them over better than theirs did. I felt as though their guy repeated his points over and over and over. I felt their guy lost it on body language a lot of the way through. I don't know if you noticed, but he cut off Danny Jowell. When you summarise and point in a legal case and you go to that point, it's when you're getting all your thoughts of the day together and you're putting your final point over. It's totally and immorally wrong in a court case to interrupt. And that's exactly what this guy did. He butted in and he ran a point. And I was like, mouth was shocked. And then Danny wound him up at the end, and the guy's body language, he was losing it. He was getting pieces of paper past him. Some of the lads on Twitter were saying if he gets more pieces of white paper past, he'll make himself a white flag, which is great. That was great crack. You know what I mean? And that's when the Newcastle fans come into one, because the crap that I was getting on WhatsApp or Twitter was unbelievable. And our fans deserve this, you know, more than anybody. And I guess all I did was, because that was part of my job, because it was several years of my life was spent working home and abroad on big court cases, I knew what they felt like. And I've spoken to QCs tonight, and I'm speaking to some more tomorrow, and you get a flavour. But the thing is, Steve, when I go about that racehorse, you can have your horse tuned. It's like your boxer, Steve. You take him down to the fight, and you know he's got everything he can have. And maybe they did it with Joshua at the weekend. Maybe they thought Anthony Joshua wasn't going to get beat. But when they get there, you put them in, just like we put our QC in. And like Irena's, she's begging us to manage our expectations, because you can go in there and you can give it your best shot and you can be in the right. And if this case was about the right and the wrong and the truths and the lies, we win every time. You know, we tell the truth, the Premier League lie. And I have no shame in saying that at all on air, or, you know, sue me if you want to. But you can still lose a case. So you talk to anybody that's been in court cases, you could have the best case in the world, and like Irena says, you can get corruption, you can get incentives, you can get foul play, and sometimes you can get the wrong decision, and that happens. So how do I feel? I feel as though we've given it a good shot. We've got it into court. I feel better tonight, you know, that it's gone in. I didn't hear anything from the Premier League that causes great concern. It was obviously going to be about Mike Ashley, and it was going to be about his ownership and the fact that he owns everything. And he owns that, and he also owns that. But legally, by law, they're still separate. So I think Danny Jowell definitely separated the two. I was disappointed he didn't let Nick DeMarco speak. And I think towards the end, their QC used Nick turning up as an own goal by us, saying that you're trying to say they're separate, yet you've got both the respective QCs for each part, Newcastle's and St James Park holders. So there's a lot of that. But I think it went well. Like Holly, I've got a good feeling over today. And in truth, I think it would be an absolute criminal injustice if the public, the Great British public, do not see this case run. So I think for them to throw it out will be a travesty. And if it does, I think there'll be a movement to overturn whatever comes next.
Great stuff. Lots of comments coming in, congratulating you, Keith, and just saying well done, be proud, mate. So you know, it's it's a sentiment which everybody agrees with. Al Walid, good evening, mate. Good to see you, and thank you for continuing your great work on your channel, and glad that you've managed to get your Twitter almost back to the numbers that you had. So after again somebody else being attacked on social media, it's becoming a common occurrence now. But your channel is still doing well. And Irena cropped up on your program. I was very impressed when I saw her, and thank you for giving me the intro. So what was your take on today's cat case? Did you see any of it? Did you just follow it on Twitter? What was your views?
Evening all. At the beginning, thank for all of the fans for helping me to get my Twitter account back. Also, I want to thank Mr. Keith Patterson for his tremendous. I promise to use easy words. Okay.
No transsexuals in here tonight, mate.
Yes, unfortunately, Al Walid's command of the English language on his own channel led to him using the word transsexual the other night, and
so I really want to thank. I really want to thank Keith Patterson really for him. Except for him, we didn't witness Premier League at weakness ever seen tonight, representing by Adam Lewis. Obviously, I saw the whole 7 hours of the court today on the link. I can see if I want to speak about, let's say, I want to speak about the judge. The judge, obviously, from his face expression and from his action and from his interfering during the session, he is obviously understand the case very well. I think he also maybe reached to a conclusion or to a decision, but his work insist for him that he need to listen for everyone. He make fun of at last second. He made fun of the Premier League that he taking too much time for preparing his cases. This is like you are delaying, but in another words, I really impressed from Mr. Daniel and Mr. Nick DeMarco. They were very calm. They were so calm, and they just let Mr. Adam from Premier League just continue reading from the manual, just reading. And I was impressed from when they get their turn finally. They just they expect what the Premier League they are gonna want to say. They just answer the claim by point. Like go to section 33, page 70. Even one point when he take referring to another case, the Premier League lawyer was shocked from the point that Daniel know about some evidence there. He did. I can't see any Premier League lawyer was so lost in that point. I was really. It was Premier League lawyer almost begging to cancel or to drop the case. It's very shame with I think Premier League really in trouble now, and but I don't know why they insist of they just want to focus on the arbitration. It's like they are so confident from arbitration, which worries me a bit. And mostly that was my conclusion for today.
No, great stuff. Always good to get a perspective from Saudi Arabia. Holly, I mean, there was a few things which we talked about off air before we came on, and the one that a lot of people are talking about in the chat is the veiled threat to throw Newcastle United out of the Premier League. What did you make of that?
That was fascinating, to be honest, when I heard that. Certainly wasn't surprised by it, because nothing surprises me coming from the Premier League, but I wasn't expecting it either. I think yet again it just shows the fact that Newcastle United are constantly treated unfairly by the Premier League. We had the European Super League case with the top 6 teams, which Keith touched on earlier, who obviously tried to join a different league, which would cause massive detrimental issues to the Premier League, and yet their punishments for that was so minor. It was actually unbelievable. Small fines, which was nothing compared to the wealth that these clubs have. And, it was just totally pathetic, the whole way that situation was handled. But then yet, due to this takeover, we were threatened with being kicked out of the league. It just speaks volumes, and yet again just proves that there's massive corruption and a cartel with the big 6 teams.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Irena, it's uncharted territory for everybody, really. The Premier League, I think today, and again, I'll stress, I'm not an expert on anything legal, but watching that and listening to what was said, I felt that the Premier League are a little bit out of their depth with this particular case. And this is quite a groundbreaking case for everybody involved. And I think it was a very clever move. And I've always said that. The club listened to Keith and took on the CAT case. I think if this had just been an arbitration case, I think this would have been very simple for the Premier League. It would have been cut and dry. But now they have the CAT case running almost simultaneously if we get the go-ahead. It's going to be interesting over the next couple of months to see exactly what happens and whether the Premier League are clever enough to win this. What do you think, Irena?
Okay, sorry. I wasn't sure whether you were addressing me or
Sorry.
Well, I think that if we were talking about blow-by-blow legal victories, you'd be completely right, of course. But we're not, because for the actors behind this whole situation, legal steps, one court case here or one court appearance there, this is not the end of the battle. It's not the end of the war. It's it's just another tactical step. First of all, I would not underestimate the Premier League's preparation for what lies ahead. But second, I think I urge to take into consideration that the actors about this are not necessarily interested in legal victory on some specific issues as they are in embarrassing Saudi Arabia. So for them, the Premier League is not an ally, it's not a friend, it's not a partner, it's just a tool of doing maximum damage. And if Premier League is outed as corrupt and suffers consequences for that, it doesn't matter at all, so long as the goal is met and the case causes a long-term problem. If, for instance, the PIF simply doesn't get to take it over for whatever reason, or if it becomes so prolonged and damaging that it just causes other larger issues in the business sense or in political sense. This is what it's all about. It's not really about legal precedents that these people care about. They don't care about that at all. They can lose 100 cases even, but still get what they want, because their interests are not in upholding the law. They're in demoralizing their enemy, destroying their enemy, destroying reputations and destroying lives.
Away from this football takeover, what we've seen develop over the last 12 months in the media has been a thawing of the relationship, Irena, between Saudi and Qatar. Is that going to be beneficial, do you think, in moving this forward, possibly away from arbitration and CAT?
I am going to be extremely blunt. All of it comes down to a character assassination attack against a particular individual, and not simply Qatar-Saudi relations as such. That specific individual is the Crown Prince, and this is why the attack is being launched. The Saudis and Qataris can continue to do business, but as you can see, this case has been ongoing. Not only that, but other cases backed by Qatar against the Crown Prince have been ongoing in the United States and even other countries. There's been issues. None of that has been taken off the table as a result of the Al-Ula agreement. To me, that signifies that Qatar remains dedicated to its goal, even as it's willing to do business as it benefits its own interests with Saudi Arabia. It has taken a pragmatic approach of not wishing to cut its own nose to spite its face. It's willing to make money, but it's also going to continue going after the specific individual that Qatar feels is most detrimental to its geopolitical strategy. This is why I don't think it's going to end.
Why do you think the Qataris in particular, and this is what really is it seemed to me, have been so against this particular takeover? Because there has been interference, and I don't make an apology for saying that. There has certainly been interference, and I'm sure that in the CAT case, and if the arbitration case runs as well, whatever happens legally, this will come out. There will be disclosure, and we will hear exactly who has been behind this. And if my suspicions are correct, why do you think they would have done this?
Well, I'm going to raise a couple of questions, and I think that they will lead to a logical conclusion. Question one: Newcastle is a relatively minor club among many famous clubs that Qatar, and I'm going to be again blunt about it, could have purchased in addition to the ones it already purchased. So, what would be its interest in causing an attack on Saudis for purchasing something so minor and from an athletic standpoint, not currently significant? Why not cause embarrassment in some other area and let them potter around with this for a while until it gets to be at a level and then cause problems at that point? Second issue, what a coincidence. Isn't it too much of a coincidence that the individual behind all these online campaigns and character attacks on Newcastle fans and others has happened to work in Newcastle at a university sometime before PAF has announced its bid for the purchase of the club?
Works in Newcastle at the university.
Worked in the past.
Yeah.
In the past.
Before PAF announced the bid.
Wow.
So this individual is employed by Qatar's institutions. Now, imagine this situation. Why would someone end up in an obscure university, college, and then somehow by sheer coincidence end up playing the significant information warfare role? That raises questions. What was, an individual with a relationship to Qatar doing in that area before? Was it just a coincidence, or was Qatar perhaps exploring opportunities in the area? Perhaps Qatar may have been exploring the purchase of the Newcastle before it got wind of Saudi's interest, or the Saudi OPF got wind of the fact that Qatar was operational there, and instead of entering perhaps the bidding war, which is normal between competitive interests against a particular sports club, it decided that it was willing to burn everybody just to cause problems for Saudis and for the Crown Prince. It didn't care. What if it was willing to discard even its own interest in investment in the area, in the real estate market value, in PR value, whatever else, just so it could damage Saudis, and willing to sacrifice all the people who would be beneficial from investments by someone purchasing the club, just out of this petty, vengeful need to humiliate this one individual.
Can I ask you something, Irena? So, in Northeast speak, can I put that in my simple words? So, are you saying to me that Qatar tried to buy Newcastle?
I'm saying that it seems too much of a coincidence that an individual who spent so much time trying to undermine this bid just happened to be there a while before the Saudis announced their interest in this thing. And I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that Qatar, which has significant real estate investments around the United Kingdom, may have been exploring that opportunity far long before the Saudis did. And when it became clear that the Saudis were trying to bid and try to challenge Qatar in that particular vicinity, they decided to use this destructive strategy rather than a competitive normal strategy to respond. Rather than trying to bid, they quite literally decided to wage total war on everyone involved, from the Crown Prince to PIF to the Newcastle fans, as if they had anything to do with this consideration at all.
That is mind blowing.
So it's mind blowing. But so Steve and me are two of the people that's been targeted probably as much as anybody, and we take it on the chin because we thick skinned, and me and him aren't the kind of people who'd weaken. So we'll just keep on doing what we do. Go back a few sentences ago, you said that the person, because what you do is you look at warfare and you study damage reputation to people's companies, businesses, states, and individuals. So if they're going to target people like me and Steve, you've then done some research, and your research, I don't want to know any of your sources, right? I don't want to know who's told you. I just want to know the work you've done. The results is all I'm interested in. So your results come back to somebody is organising this who worked at Newcastle University.
Yes, and that person, and it's a matter of public record. If you know the individual I'm talking about, it's a matter of public record looking at his work history. It's not anything mysterious or that requires extensive investigation. It's right there. But of course, for people who were not paying attention to this particular story, where that person worked, which British universities, made no difference whatsoever, But it just seems, in light of the current events, it seems like too much of a coincidence, in my opinion.
Interesting. Okay, well, as I say, it's a theory, and it's something which Irena's brought to the table, and I certainly wouldn't be surprised. Got to give a big shout out to our sponsors, as always. Big thank you to Spider VPN. If you have any issues with your internet, which me and Keith have had fair few, but now we know why, contact Spider VPN. They can help protect your passwords, your photographs, and everything on your computer. They are the boys to trust. Go onto your Google search and Spider VPN come up. Thanks to skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pays you no waste collection. And to L&G Family Funerals Directors 0191 389 7245. Big shout out to John, who's in the chat. qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle. And to Jab Signature, who make a fantastic set of boxing range clothes. First time visitor, well, I'm sure we've got a few tonight. Please subscribe. It is free. We do 7 shows a week, and we do a few extra as well. Hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right hand corner and subscribe. We've had over 200 new subscribers this week. Hit the thumb up to like the channel, like the video as well tonight. That does help us with the algorithm. Hit the share button to share it to your other social media, other Newcastle fans. Maybe you want to see this, so stick it on Facebook groups and Twitter, etc. Drop into the comments, and we will get as many comments on the screen as possible. And if we've got time, we'll do some questions as well tonight. We are also available as a podcast on all your podcast providers. Simply search NUFC Matters, and we are on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and all the rest. We also do a lot of work for the food bank. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk. There is a virtual bucket there. If you want to donate 20 pence or £20, you can dip into the food bank and drop it into there. All proceeds go to the food bank. You've still got time to enter into that raffle as well for the Newcastle Consortium supporters. Watch, and that will be drawn at a future event. So everyone who donates into the food bank, you get a chance to go onto the raffle. We've also got a website, nufcmatters.com. Lots of t-shirts, cups, and other memorabilia available on there. And just a quick chance to plug a couple of the events that we've got coming up over the next couple of months. An evening with Gavin Peacock on the 29th of October, which is a Friday. Tickets for that one are £15. We also have our belated 2020 Christmas do, which is on the 19th of November. And that is £12 with all proceeds going to Newcastle's food bank for that one. That will have Supermac and Gibbo doing a talk in. And then on the 26th of November, this one is selling really well, so get your tickets quickly if you're thinking about it but are hanging back. An evening with Peter Beardsley, Friday, November the 26th, 2021. All of those 3 events are at the Tyneside Irish Centre in Newcastle upon Tyne, just across the road from the Gallowgate, underneath the Chinese Arch, leading to Stowell Street. So go and get some scran and then come in and see us. NewcastleLegends.com. That is the website to buy the tickets from, and just click shop and you can buy your tickets there. But all 3 events selling really well, and looking forward to seeing as many people there as possible. Keith, I think, you know, the gist of today, a lot of people asking in the chat, how do you think it's gone? How do you think it's gone? Has this been a good day? A lot of people feeling positive. I guess, really, the Premier League's goal today was either to get the claim thrown out completely or to get the claim shelved until arbitration proceedings are over next year. And St James's Holding, obviously the claimant, say that the corruption claim must be heard as it is a different legal case. Have I summed that up correctly?
Yeah, you have. I mean, the 2 very, very different cases, and that's why I guess I've been mega positive all the way through. And then when the day comes and it dawns on you that the case is running, you then start thinking, well, what happens if it doesn't win? You know, you start thinking of the other side. So I've probably been the most positive for the past couple of weeks that this case is running. And like the last 24 hours, I've just said, look, and I do think we'll win it. I do think that the judge will have to let it run. And I think the fears I've always had, and I mentioned these when we were at Rotherham, Steve, because we were in a car and we spoke and took calls. It was me, Steve, and Liam Kennedy, the journalist, and we were talking about things that could go wrong. And I took a call down there from a QC, a competition QC, who said that if he was running the case, he would appeal against it. So that's still my fear, because there was a lot of contentious points today discussed, whereby if you think about, just remember this, you can only appeal on a matter of law. That's something you need to understand. You can't just appeal for the sake of it. And a lot of fans said today, Keith, they'll just appeal just to delay things. Well, you can't just do that. So you've got to have good grounds, and you've got to get granted an appeal. So everyone has the right to put an appeal in, but it won't necessarily run. And that appeal has got to be tackling a point of law. And if you look at some of the points, let's suppose he finds in our favour, and he says, no, I think this case has got to run. You wonder whether the Premier League will come back on a point of law about Mike Ashley's ownership of all these various companies. And it's those kind of things that are outside of my hands. So today at 10:30, I thought, well, there's the case in. There you go. You know, I'm long stopped spending money now. And you just think, you say, well, it's got the best chance ever. I think it is the right case to win. I think if the CAT case runs, bear in mind, I took this to the club in October 2020. If they'd done it then, Robert O'Donoghue said to me, we'd have new owners now. PIF would be owning us. If that case had run in October 2020, there would be none of these disputes. The club had grounds to do it. They could have run a CAT case, and it wouldn't have clashed with anything. But today, my fear is, will they find it? So therefore, the judge now has got to get all that case. He's got to make a judgment, hopefully in our favour. And then he's got to write the judgment in such a way, and they've got a duty to do this, to stop people making appeals. Because judges don't want cases being held up and courtrooms being held up with appeals all the time. So every judge has a duty to write a judgment that they can be quoted on, that can be challenged, but also to stop appeals happening. So I just hope he writes a strong appeal where he's considered every part of the argument, but he can close down all that argument, because it's clear. And if anybody was on any under misunderstanding today with the Premier League, they went to go private after 1 point. They were 20 minutes in, and then they wanted to go private. And what they wanted to do was take things offline. And then he tried, their QC, Adam Lewis, tried to get his summary private. How the hell could you watch a case privately in public and then summarise their points versus ours and have them in private? We'd be watching half a case. It'd be like watching a horse race with 2 horses. And you say, oh, you didn't win one of the ones you couldn't see one. It's crazy what they're doing. But this is the Premier League. This is the Premier League that went to fans groups and said that they wanted this in public. Well, today he actually proved. And the club was said to me all along, if we could get it in public, Keith, we'd be delighted. And you saw DeMarco say that today. You saw Danny Jowell say that today on behalf of St James Park Holdings and Newcastle United. So for me, I think the fans have every right, Steve, to feel good, because if it was a boxing match, our lad, we think, landed the most punches. We think our lad boxed better. We think we won it on points. But Steve, how many times you're a boxing promoter? How many times you've been to a boxing fight and got a wrong decision? And how many times have you said he was robbed? You see a decision, or you got a draw when it wasn't a draw. So that's the only nervousness tomorrow. I mean, I'll talk to some legal people tomorrow, and I'll get a bit more of a guide and a steer. But it's just haven't come this far and having to give your life up. You worry, like Irena says, that something stinky's going on behind the background that you don't know about. You know what I mean? And you just wonder if somebody, I don't know. You just wonder if you get blagged. I mean, there's that much at stake now, because I think if the judge lets this run, I don't think we'll get to the 3rd of January. I don't think we'll get to the arbitration. If this runs, I think we'll get as far as disclosure, or even sooner, and I think it will crumble and break.
Albally, what did you make of what Irena had to say about the campaign? You're free to speak, obviously, on our channel about that. It's rather unnerving, isn't it, to hear that a football club takeover could be affected by trolling at that level, and the geopolitical games which we've spoken of in the past, seem to have escalated. I would say, it seems to have escalated, and the targeting of people involved, supportive of the takeover, which we've said all along we expected. It's refreshing, I guess, as well as unnerving, to hear Irena, support and say that is why. But are you surprised that that's happened, or is that something you expected?
Okay, to this point, I will come to it, but I just want to back to the case today. Just something I remind.
Go for it.
It was for me. It was absolutely funny that I saw the Adam Lewis, the QC of Premier League, at maybe last hour and a half, trying to, as Keith says, receiving papers, and obviously. Obviously, maybe Richard Master and Gary Hoffman on the other side, they are pulling their hair. They couldn't understand. They are not satisfied, obviously, from what Daniel Lewis, Daniel Joel said. So it was really, for me, it was made my day. For your question, Steve. Okay, for Qatar and Saudi Arabia, obviously, before, when we are in some misunderstanding and the story, everything start the Premier League and the pressure from BN, and this is a start 2 years ago. So lately, maybe it's been like almost 1 year. Everything is getting much better. We see everything going very well. We see Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Sheikh of Qatar Tamim and Neom in the Saudi Arabia. They are together. Everything seems fine. So, but the problem is that the problem in the Premier League and the case of PN already started. So this is the thing. And 3rd of January, I think it's going to be a week for arbitration. The weird thing for me, it's about, I think, in the middle or 15 January, Nasser Al-Khalifi, BN chief, and Paris Saint-Germain will come to Riyadh to play against my team, Al-Hilal, in Riyadh season. So it's going to be very weird for me. I believe this is just because what's been raised before, but I believe now it's the thing. It's between the Premier League and Saudi Arabia, and you don't know what's inside the heart. You don't know who's now. They are still pushing Qatar? Are they still pushing the Premier League or not? We can't know that.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, and as I say, a lot of this will come out, I would imagine, as things progress. Holly, I mean, I think another interesting point that was brought up today was the comment that Mike Ashley had significant offers for the club, other significant offers for the club. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I think that is very interesting. I think it's something that's been spoke about a lot, certainly recently, that there may be other potential buyers that could come in for the club. I always had a concern that these buyers weren't as financially capable as the consortium that we currently have on the table, or that their heart wasn't in the right place, because I do believe that both Amanda Staveley in particular and Jamie Rubin really do have the best interests of Newcastle United, whereas with other owners, you're not sure if that's the case. And ultimately, all I want is, forget the money, I want someone that cares about the football club and they want the best for the football club, because it doesn't always work having a rich owner, because it doesn't mean they're going to invest. Mike Ashley is a fairly rich owner, but he hasn't invested, which just proves my point. But yeah, certainly I think there has been other offers there, and I'm assuming that Mike Ashley's probably looked into these with great interest. There may be some that he's thinking of going ahead with if this does unfortunately fail, which would be awful, because for me it's always been PIF or nothing, and I think that's the way it did feel for a long time. But there will be other buyers there, and I'm just worrying about who these people are and if it'll be as successful as the consortium that we believe to be able to take over. However, you're just thinking, like, it's just another situation where you're thinking, I hope we don't run into any more problems like we have with the previous takeover, because I really couldn't go through this again. And I think no matter what now, I'll be happy to get rid of Mike Ashley, of course, but another takeover just wouldn't feel quite the same.
Yeah, no, very, very true. Irena, I did again. There's lots of points which I picked up on, and I'm sure everybody picks up on different things. But it was the Premier League's QC who said something which tickled me, made me laugh. He said he felt that Ashley opening up a second simultaneous front of litigation was abusive, and he said that it was improper pressure on the Premier League, which gives him a second bite at the cherry. Is this something you've seen in the past in other cases that you've looked at? Is this common for somebody to have two forms of litigation going side by side?
Yes, actually, this happens frequently because there are different aspects of there are different procedures. First of all, arbitration and court cases are separate items. Arbitration is a private agreement. Court cases related to other issues don't necessarily have to do anything with the issues discussed in the contracts between the two parties. Non-compete agreements, for instance, in the United States, this falls under U.S. Government institutional purview to some level. It has nothing to do with arbitration between two companies or two entities. So this is kind of a ridiculous response by him. It's he's trying to play victim, and this is not uncommon among defendants in general, to try to blame the other side or to try to claim that they're being under undue pressure. But I do want to say that this accusation of bullying through legal means is quite ironic, given the fact that Premier League engaged in bullying first by trying to threaten Newcastle of throwing out. It's almost an equivalent to whistleblower kind of whistleblower intimidation. I would compare that. Second, by engaging in the actions that we've seen them that landed them in this situation to begin with, engaging in corrupt and inappropriate activity preceding the takeover, and also during the process of the takeover, unfair, falling under the pressure of the collective lobbying efforts, treating PIF unequally, accusing them of being state actors and so forth. So that also actually reminds me of the behavior of Qatar during the Gulf crisis before the signing of the agreement. The entire time, Qatar had claimed to be a victim of the four states, including Saudi Arabia, who had presented it with a clear list of demands related to sponsorship of extremist terrorists, rogue state actors, and so forth. But they claim that they're just a small country, that they're victims. They claim that they were victims of bullying, but we're willing to outspend absolutely everybody, never acquiesce to these demands. are now under investigations as a state entity by the US government for funding of terrorism, facing multiple terrorism lawsuits in the US and in the United Kingdom. This is the country capable of anything. So it's no wonder that the entities it has used as its agents engage in the same tactics and the same double standards and victim blaming. We are seeing the same strategy being employed in the completely fictitious lawfare suits going on again in the US along the same vein. Accusations of victimhood by people who are spreading incitement and character assassination campaigns against backed by Qatari money. So this is nothing new or surprising, to be honest.
Okay, Keith, another question that's being asked on a regular basis is, what is the expected timescale for a decision on the ruling? I mean, there was no indication, Keith, was there, at the end of that?
And I think it'll be quick. I don't see it being longer than a week. And what he did say is, well, often when you get a judge like that, often the judge, did you hear early on in the case today where the judge said, we're not, I think he said something like, we're not minded or we're not convinced by your argument to the Premier League. He said to the Premier League at one stage that he wasn't going to take their argument. Later on in the case, he said to the guy, which was a huge slur, I spoke to QC at night and I said, geez, if you were working for me and the judge said that to you, I'd be most disappointed in the money I'd spent. Because he said to him today, I think your argument is far-fetched when he was talking about time delay. The guy was trying to say he couldn't run a CAT case and he couldn't run an arbitration case between now and January because you have to prepare for the arbitration case. And the judge said, well, that's a bit far-fetched. You're not telling me that you'd be working on the arbitration right away from now to then. So I think that QC lost the judge on a few occasions today. And I think that went in our favour. But in terms of times, the reason I'm giving some hesitancy is because he turned around and made a statement at the end and said, he did a we'll think of this through, we'll come to a decision. Often when you get a case like this, it's a one-day hearing, the judge knows pretty well. And I was surprised because going into it, I thought I'd get a much bigger indication today of what the result would be. I think we'll still get the result. I just hope we get a result that doesn't allow an appeal, because tactically an appeal allows the Premier League to delay it past the arbitration, and to win the arbitration you need this case to run before it because you need the disclosure. So time-wise, I think you'll get an answer in the next week. I think in the next day or two you'll get leakage of how both sides felt they did. And then the answer will go to them. They'll find out. You'll get the announcement. It won't come to all of us how you would want to see it. I think it will go to both sides, Premier League and Football Club. And then a statement will come out. It'll be interesting when that statement comes out, if it comes out as a joint statement again. Because remember the last time that happened, Steve, there was a bit of surprise and alarm that they put a joint statement out together. So I think that's how it will come out. Result-wise, I think we'll get it, but it's the appeal that's chilling me a bit.
Yeah, there was a bit of disappointment on the buyer's side that the Premier League and the Football Club came out and they weren't aware of it, and that was rather annoying. I mean, look, from the buyer's side, I mean, people know that I have contact with them. It's no change from them. They sat like everybody else, during the day and watched it and had eyes on the CAT case. But from their perspective, I've just got to reiterate once again, nothing can happen. They just have to sit and wait now. They are spectators in a big legal game now. They can just wait and see what Mike Ashley and his legal eagles managed to get. Keith, another point I did want to bring up, and this again was from the Premier League side. They talked about the allegations, by St James's Holdings that there was an influence by lobbying by beIN Sport, something that Irena touched on a little earlier, and other clubs. And they said that was a distortion and an abuse that led the Premier League to misapply its rules over the owner's test. Now, what was interesting about that was they didn't elaborate who the other clubs were. Yeah.
We know who the other clubs. We know who the other clubs are. And there's only certain things you can say on here, but some of the clubs who aren't in the Big Six have been approached to see if they'd been lobbied, and some of them hadn't. So it's safe to say that, I mean, first of all, we can prove the letter not only was written, but we can prove the letter's been sent out. So the letter has actually been sent out. When I was running the case myself, one of the challenges I had was said, yeah, you've got a great letter there. That does amount to collective lobbying. What you need to do now is prove that it's actually gone out. Because you could have a great letter. You could write a real damn letter, Steve, that you're going to send to X, Y, Z, but it only becomes damaging when you send it out. And so one of my jobs early on in the case was to prove that letter had gone out. And we did that on an exercise which might come out in the future, but it can't come out tonight. And that letter was tested, and it had gone out. And we got someone from behind to confirm the letter had gone out, and he didn't think there was anything wrong with it. And I mentioned it on your show once and said that he asked a question. He said, what's the difference between us lobbying clubs to stop the takeover and you lobbying for a takeover? And our QC said, dead easy. Lobbying for a takeover is legal, and lobbying to stop a takeover is illegal. And that was really quite a damning point. But so I think that it was fascinating, because we always knew that in the 6-point letter we hit them with 6 legal points, and they didn't really answer any of them. They touched on one point and made an awful answer. And our QC said to us, if that's the best they're going to answer, you'll smash this. And we knew that 3 points, you only got to win 1 point. We knew 3 points couldn't be overturned. When the club got our case, their case becomes stronger, because they could put times, dates, events. And for example, Keith Patterson and Gordon Steen and NCSL wouldn't be aware at any time that the club had been threatened with expulsion from the league. That's full of Steve. I mean, Holly's just said, you're just sitting there as fans, because that's all we are, Holly. We're just fans, aren't we? We sit and watching it going, wow, I didn't know that. But when you find out your club nearly got thrown out, it then pretty much answers all them people on Twitter who say, why don't the club just sell to PIF and take the fine? Well, because we don't know they're getting threatened to get chucked out. But when you hear that you sort of sit there and go, bloody hell, that must be a big part of their competition claim. That must be a big thing because there'll be letters written. There'll be letters written amongst people in the Premier League to throw them out. There'll even be letters written, believe it or not, from the big 6 telling the Premier League to chuck us out. Because that's how these things work. These things just don't materialise overnight. So I think that what's happening at the minute is some of the points we've got, which came up today, was intriguing, because we knew there were game set and match winners. We knew the behind letter is a killer. We know that letter is really hard to defend in legal terms. So to hear it in there was something else. But I don't know. The only crime will be, Steve, if we don't hear a cat case, if it doesn't run.
Okay. Before we finish, Toon's got a question, Keith. I'll come to this just to you with this for this answer. He says, question for you, Keith. The talk today was if they can prove the difference between state and new owners, the takeover can be passed. Will this happen, do you think?
The talk today, yeah. So if I mean, Irena, that's just asking if you can prove separation. So he's saying if you can prove the difference between state and new owners, and you've got to go back to the case. You've got to go back to why I thought it had legs. I received some information a long time ago, like sort of a year ago, that when the club tried to get the thing passed, they offered evidence from PIF and their lawyers to prove separation. I then spoke to a lawyer who specialised in separation, and he said to me, the only people that can prove separation in a state case is the state that owns that company. So if you've got a state of Bangladesh, and there's an argument as to whether a Bangladeshi company is owned by the state or not, It's the legal rules of Bangladesh and the rules of that country which will determine it. So you then have to advise somebody in that country to represent you. We received from good authority that the Premier League have never invested any monies into Saudi Arabia to determine whether PIF are separate from the state or not. So on those grounds, they literally must be guilty of making a decision that they were the same because they haven't investigated whether they were separate or not. And with Shahid Fatima on board at the club, I believe that they've got a specialist in the MENA region who will prove separation. And today it was confirmed that if you prove it, you win. So I still think that can be won. But I wouldn't like that arbitration run until the CAT case has got the disclosure.
Okay, yeah, you always said that she would play a major part in this, so it will be interesting to see how it progresses. Okay, let's go around the board. I'll come to you first, Irena. I know you're keen to say something before we sign off, but I do want to just chip in with a quick text from Kate Stewart, who's been a big supporter of the takeover. She has been again relentlessly trolled, attacked, had a Twitter account closed. Somebody who I know personally, and she says, Steve, Keith, Holly, myself and others have been subject to months of trolling, etc. on Twitter. To my mind, this feels coordinated. There is no doubting the Qatari influences have been at play. The end, she says. And she has been a big victim of this, being called a bot, being rudely abused, and it has been awful to see what she's had to go through. But thanks for your support, Kate. But yeah, Irena, just summing up from your perspective about today's hearings and your views, I guess your gut instinct as to whether you feel that Newcastle United could have new owners potentially by next year.
I think it's possible if two things happen. First of all, if PIF does not give up on its bid and ignores the attempts to intimidate it into leaving through various legal shenanigans and accusations, state-owned, not state-owned, the arbitration process should not be seen like an end unto itself. It should be seen as one of the tools to get this done. So the mentality about this is, okay, this is what they're throwing at us. How do we deal with it? Instead of saying, oh, well, this is a legal problem and we are stuck, and if we lose this particular process due to bias or whatever else, then we are done here. That's to address what you said earlier before we started this podcast, that if they lose the arbitration case, they want restructure, they'll walk away basically. The second point is it's time to play offense, and in more than one way. It's time to start looking at the third parties who have been causing these issues to begin with. I think while the Premier League may or may not be done in terms of the exposures of its corruption, the reality is it's only one of the tools being used to try to destroy this process. And should the Premier League fail, this precedent, these actors won't stop in attacking everyone linked, and if it succeeds, that's also a bad precedent either way. Therefore, in order to not let bad behavior prevail, and in order for Newcastle to succeed, it and PIF need to send a message that this is not going to be tolerated. It's going to be fought on all fronts, kind of like what Churchill once said about UK's England's enemies. And this is what we're looking at. I believe if PIF follows my advice in this respect and is not intimidated by the prospects of an endless process, but rather takes its own initiative, I think you could have new owners and the owners that you want and deserve.
Fantastic, great stuff, Holly. You've been positive tonight. Your gut instinct about this. Do you think that after today, there's a chink of light in this potential takeover of our great club?
Yeah, I do. I'm not 100% confident because I think not many people will be 100% confident at this stage. However, after today, I am feeling as though the CAT case will go ahead, and then I do have faith that we will win that CAT case in due course. And you're just hoping that it happens as soon as possible and there's no more delaying tactics from the Premier League.
Al-Walid, are you positive?
Actually, I can't wait for the decision, because we can't see we all feel that it's gonna be for our direction. We see the meaningless argument of Premier League QC, and we see how Daniel answer with simple answers. It's like when he said something about the company of St. James Holdings. He just answered this huge argument by one word: the club can't sell itself. But it was brilliant, something to say. I can say we just I can't wait for the decision of the CAT case, and I believe this CAT case will help us get the takeover.
Great stuff. Keith, we'll leave the final word to you.
Thank you. I feel great today. I feel as though a big relief come at 10:30 this morning. I feel as though like we've got something going, and if we've ever got a chance, I'm certain the CAT case is the way forward. So I feel good about that. I feel good to be on the panel tonight. It's great to sit with you lot. Holly's just become a beacon for Newcastle fans. If anybody starts supporting the club and they want to watch what a young fan can do, just watch her. She's been outstanding. When I was in London with her, I stood next to her. I was just proud to stand next to her. You, Steve, done more for this whole community than anybody. And Al-Walid, you're the best transsexual I've ever worked with. So. and there's one thing I'm going to say is there's a US lawyer in the top right above us, and she's a lawyer. She tells the truth. And being from America, she knows all about American celebrities. And I'm going to ask you a question. When I was on Al-Walid's show, I asked you then, do you think looked like Bruce Willis? And you said that was the double, didn't you? Didn't you say that, Irena?
Right. I think now the resemblance has become even greater, especially after all the great comments.
Fantastic. So listen, before any of you said any looking like, he said on Friday's show, said I look like Jasper Carrot. Just remember, there's an American that said I'm Bruce Willis's double. Even in nature.
Yeah, mate. Dear me, it's one thing we'll disagree on.
I just want to say thanks to everybody for all the kind comments you've put on, because that's why I do it, and I'll never give up. And one of the things I'm doing now is I'm just absolutely, the minute I get some stuff comes through and it's not, and people wind you up, I just spin it, honestly. And I've got to say that the amount of good fans that's behind this, and I think today there's been a big coming together of proper Newcastle fans. Like Al-Walid said, what Al-Walid's saying is, our case sounded much clearer and easier to understand. And that's a Saudi Arabian sitting there for 7 hours watching a show. It's fantastic. And what you've done, Al-Walid, for us, you are the most popular Saudi Arabian on the planet. Like we love you. We do. We think you're brilliant. And the fact that you've summarised our legal action as good as we have. It just ours sounded clearer. Ours sounded stronger. And we're not daft, us fans. And we listen today, and if we don't win, something's wrong. That's what I would say. So to all of you who's been kind, said all the kind words the last 24 hours, thanks a million.
Thanks to everybody in the chat as well for putting your comments in. I tried to keep them as slow as possible on the screen. Irena, please don't get a job representing the Premier League, says Graham. And Michael says that Keith looks more like Bruce Forsyth rather than Bruce Willis, which again a lot of people will agree with. I think I do want to give a quick plug to this today. My good mate Peter Beardsley has opened a soccer school. Former Newcastle United legend, of course. Monday the 25th to Friday the 29th of October 2021 at Kingston Park Stadium in Newcastle. 10 o'clock in the morning until 4 p.m. in the evening. £15 a day or £60 for the full week. All coaches involved are FA qualified and DBS checked. If you're interested to get your youngster involved, please email pbsoccerschools@hotmail.com. That's pbsoccerschools hotmail.com. And if you can't learn anything off that man, I don't know who can. We've
brilliant.
also got a wonderful prize up for grabs. And this is all proceeds to the food bank. I've got to thank my good mate at I Am Renovation Trainers. He's done a few for me. I got a nice pair of Sex Pistols trainers done a couple of years ago, and they're still going strong. So this is for the food bank. The winner will be drawn on November the 26th at the Evening with Peter Beardsley. You can win a lovely pair of custom-made Peter Beardsley trainers. You've got the lovely McEwen's old shirt down the side there. Nice black and white trainers. Tickets are £1. Just go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and Peter will sign the trainers as well. So a cracking prize brought to you by NUFC Matters and I Am the Renovation. And you can enter that raffle now. We'll finish with a good friend of ours and a tweet. And I think this is rather apt. I want to thank Irena, Holly, Alwaleed and Keith for coming on tonight and hopefully get you all back when we see the next legal action. It would be good to have you all back on. And Ben Jacobs, hearing over, probably the first win of the season for Newcastle United. I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Well done.
Good
Well
one.
done.
Take care. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Head back with the critics of time.